Hello everyone, hope you find yourself having a great day. I'm going to put together a quick down and dirty tutorial in Sony Vegas, and this is going to be specifically applicable to editing the footage coming off of a Q500 Plus. Now this can be either for the standard 1080p footage or the 4K. Just substitute the numbers for your 4K footage if you're going to be doing this, and it's going to be very basic. I've got some footage in Sony Vegas. If you're familiar with how to use it, you're just going to browse your hard drive or your SD cards. I've got some loaded up here, and I'm going to drag that into my timeline. Okay, I'm going to allow it by default to match my timeline frame rate, size, dimension to that footage, and that's what this prompt is right here. So I'll enter yes. It's going to bring that footage in by default. Now I didn't have my audio on my camera when I did the recording. However, it still captures an empty audio track. And what I'm going to do, because I'm not going to use this audio track, is I'm going to select it, and I'm just going to hit delete on my keyboard, and I'm going to remove that. Okay. So now what we've left with is our raw footage. Now it came in from the camera with the H.264 codec, the compression method. Now that's not a very smooth codec to work with. You see there's a little bit of stuttering involved here, but it is suitable to work within Sony Vegas. So we've got this. Now what we've got that you see the area highlighted in, what we're doing is scrubbing through the video. When we're placing our insertion marker throughout different timelines or portions of the timeline in our footage. Now, for example, if I go back to the beginning of my footage, let's say that I wanted to remove this. If I play it, let's say that I just wanted to remove that beginning portion where that grass was. Anywhere I put my insertion point is, I can, with my roller wheel on my mouse, roll it, and it will in effect zoom me in closer on this footage. You see, if I zoom out, I can see my whole 10-minute piece of footage. But if I were to select, let's say for example on the end, and scroll in, I am zooming in effectively to get a more tighter control of that section of footage. And then by rolling out on my roller wheel, I can see the whole timeline again. So let's say that I want to be very precise at the very beginning here and eliminate this portion where the grass is. Now what I can do is I can scrub through. I'm getting even closer here. I can scrub through to the point where you see I'm beginning to lift off. Okay, I'm going to put it about right here. Now you see where this piece of my timeline is. What I can do at that point is just drag this over to that piece, and effectively I've removed that beginning of the footage where the camera's setting in the grass. Now it's still there. I've just in effect scrolled back through to eliminate that from my visible timeline, and now I can move that footage over to the left. So if I were to begin at the beginning, I'll click this and rewind. You'll see now that I'm coming up in the air and we've eliminated that grass in front of the blade or in front of the camera. Okay, so let's say that at this point here, and maybe instead of even having this portion where I'm lifting off and getting ready to begin my flight, let's say that I wanted to put a nice fade in there. I can put my insertion point right here, and on my keyboard hit S. Now what that does is cut that video at that point. Now keep in mind that each clip that I have is the full length, the full duration video. So I'm going to undo that. Control Z will undo that, and now it's joined again. Now this, what I'm about to show you, is the absolute most important feature that gets overlooked when people are rendering videos. Select your footage, right click it, and choose Properties. Okay, Properties is the bottom of that menu. It may have been cut off. When this Properties dialog comes up, click Disable Resample. This is the most overlooked feature that if you do not click this, you'll produce the worst quality video you could hope for. In effect, it destroys your footage by resampling it. You don't want to resample your footage. You always want your footage to be pristine, as close to original as possible. Enter OK. So back to the splitting. Where my insertion pointer is, I'm going to hit S to split that. Now I can get a nice fade effect simply by dragging this over. Now see how it kind of bumps up against that? You can hold Shift on your keyboard when you do that, and it'll let you drag over that. And you'll see that there's a number there. See, it's 4, 6, 8, 9, 10, 12, 14. These are not even quite a second. But if we drag this over here, that's about a 1 second fade. And 1 second and 4/100ths. So you can get a nice fade. I'll do a lengthy fade just to kind of exaggerate this. But if I hit rewind and play, okay, you see how that faded? And it wasn't so obvious because we're fading the same piece of footage. If I back this out and extend my timeline and come back over here, we'll play it again and watch this fade. It'll fade from this scene to this scene. Okay, that's a good, easy way to get a fade. All right. So now, if you want some audio, with audio you got to be careful with copyright. But there are a few places online, especially if you want music, free played music, and another one. Josh Woodward produces songs that he allows you to put in your videos with attribution. So let me see if I've got an audio clip here. I'll just go to. See if I can just find anything. Well, let's just get any kind of audio that I've got here. Like here's some outdoor sounds. You can browse through your browser and get those. Your browser built into Vegas, or you can just open them up in your Windows Explorer, right? And then just drag these guys. You can drag them as an MP3 or audio. Let's see what we get here. There's just an audio track, piece of audio. And right now, it's in the scene. We've got our different controllers for the audio here. So if I were to rewind and hit play, see, we've got audio. Now with this audio, you can adjust the volume. You don't necessarily see it here, but at the top of a clip, if you put your pointer, see how I've got here? This down decreases the gain of the audio, makes it much fainter, and then up is its full volume. All right. Now what we've got the same with video, is we can reduce its opacity or increase its opacity. Now let's say at the end of a piece of footage, when our video production's finally over, we can fade it out by simply doing this. And when we play it, you'll see that it's beginning to fade out. That kind of thing. Alright, so that's pretty much basic editing. Let's say that my final production is going to be this length. What I can do is zoom out, and I can pull this guy back and zoom in, and I'm going to have it butt up against my end of my area that I've selected in my timeline. So our entire video, if we want to render just this portion that we have here, we would simply select it, right? Go up top to File, Render As. Now this is important also. We've got a variety of codecs built in. I will suggest that you download the Huffy YUV codec, and for Sony Vegas, you'll need the 64-bit version. It's a Huffy YUV. I'll put a link in the description for that specific one. You'll install it, and then it will be available within Sony Vegas. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to select an AVI codec or an AVI container. So we're going to select any one of these, and at this point we're going to customize it because we're working with HD footage. Okay. What we want for the codec is going to be the Huffy YUV codec. All right. We want the actual frame rate that we're working with, which was 5997, and we're going, or 5994 NTSC, and we want a 1:1 pixel aspect ratio. That's going to prevent any distortion, and because our footage is progressive, we do not want any type of deinterlacing. Okay. So we're going to tell it the video size should be our project settings, which is going to be 1920 by 1080. Okay. And because we have audio, under our audio tab, we're going to select, leave it as its default uncompressed. We want pristine audio, the best quality possible. So we've got our size, our frame rate. We're not going to deinterlace. We want a 1:1 aspect ratio. And we want to leave the interleave every 0.25 seconds as it is. Now, at this point, save this as a template that you will always come back to. Now, if you're using 4K footage, when you told it to use project settings, this would have the width and height for the 4K footage. If you shot it 30 frames per second, change this to match your original 30 frames per second. I shot at the 60 frame rate from the camera. 59.94 is effectively 60. So make sure that your width and height and your frame rate are the same for what you shot. Once you're done, give it a name. I'll just call this my Q500. All right, and I'm going to change I'll change all this at the bottom also, just to match that. And when I click save, that's going to save that as a template. All right, so that I can effectively come in here anytime. See, it saved all my settings that I've made. I'm going to put a star by it, and then if I do this, only show favorites, anytime I come back in, I can select that, and all those settings will have been made for me. Okay, so now I'm going to browse. I'm going to tell it to save in a folder I've created on my desktop called Final Render, and I'll just call this large, because Huffy YUV codec saves these files virtually lossless. They're going to be huge. I've had them for 10-minute pieces of video be 80 and 90 gigs in size, but we want that. We want that for now. If you've got the space, we want large sizes that are lossless. So we're going to render that. I'll tell it to render, and it'll go through this pretty quick because it's only 8 seconds of footage. And you'll see that in just a second, for 8 seconds of footage, the file is virtually, it's crazy. It's very, very large size. It's unplayable as far as considering it to upload for YouTube or something like that. Alright, so if I go into our final render folder, we'll see that we rendered that, and it's for 8 seconds, it's just over a gig. Now it will play just fine, but it's not suitable for uploading. Now I've got a website called hypephoto.com/easyencoder. I'll put a link to it in the description also, where you can go and download a FFmpeg converter application with scripts that I've got set up to do this for you. It's drag and drop. You'll put the script, which is basically a batch file that connects to FFmpeg that's installed when you download it and run the installer. This will take the file, any files in the folder, and convert them all to an optimized frame rate and bit rate, as well as retain that original color. FFmpeg and the FFmpeg and the H.264 and X.264 encoders are notorious for degrading the color of your footage, making your blacks gray and your whites black. I've got a special portion of this script that eliminates that. It retains that color while retaining the file size. But never mind, I'll go ahead and run this, and you'll see we're going to convert that from just over a gig. Well, watch here. So this file's running. We're a minute or 1 second, 2 seconds into it. It's showing our current bit rate. It's showing the frames per second at which it's processing, not the final render, but the rate that this script is processing your footage. And we're at 6 seconds. And there we go, we're finished. And so it's produced this footage here, and its size is 14 megs versus a gig. Now if I play this, you'll see that the quality is just pristine. Now I'm going to resize it so that it will fit 100% in our screen here. Alright, so I hope you find that interesting and hope it helps someone out there. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.